Hello everyone, welcome back. It's been a while since I brought you folks a deck profile, and I wanted to bring you one of the more interesting commanders that I think has come out lately, and that's Mikey Leo Chaos Order. So if you don't know what it does, so for 2 hybrid Selesnya mana, you get a legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle, 2/2, that says whenever you put a counter on a creature you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So my game plan with this deck is to trigger that ability as much as possible. Give my creatures a lot of +1/+1 counters so I can draw. Yes, it's only once per turn, but you can also do it on your opponent's turn. And you beef up your creatures, you protect them, and you just beat your opponent down. Now that's one of the win cons, or one of the game plans. The other is this deck also runs the classic Heliod and Walking Ballista combo as well. And it also runs another combo involving Walking Ballista, and that is Agatha's Soul Cauldron with Leo Cutting Edge, and of course Walking Ballista. So let's go ahead and get on with the rest of the deck. So creatures, we have a brand new creature that's coming out. At the time of recording, Secrets of Strixhaven doesn't come out officially till next week. But this is one of the cards, and I thought it was pretty cool, and that's Ambitious Augmenter. So for 1 green mana, it's a creature or turtle wizard, 1/1, increment. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana you spent is greater than this creature's power or toughness, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. When this creature dies, if it had 1 or more counters on it, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, then put this creature's counters on that token. So yes, this will trigger Mikey. That's going to be a recurring theme. We want to trigger him as much as possible and gain advantage, and then beat our opponent down. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I also like the fact that it's also a turtle, so keeping within flavor. And then we play Badger Mole Cub, the earthbending one. When you earthbend a creature, it does put a +1/+1 counter on it, and again, going to trigger Mikey and Leo. Same with Cenote Scout. When this is ETBs, you can explore, and then hopefully you get that +1/+1 counter. And if not, you get a land. You get to draw a land card, so that's pretty good. Delighted Halfling, so that they don't counter on Mikey and Leo. Dusk Legion Duelist. I really love this card ever since it came out. Anytime you put a +1/+1 counter on it, you get to draw a card. Sucks that only triggers once a turn, but if you have Mikey and Leo out on the board and you trigger her ability, you get to draw 2 cards, so that's pretty cool. And then we have Formidable Speaker. This is here to search our Heliod, is here to search Mikey, is here to search Walking Ballista, or any combo piece that we may need. And then we have Gata and Luzu. This one is here for protection, and then it also gives our creatures +1/+1 counters on it, so that's pretty cool. And then Guide of Souls, this card needs no introduction. It is like part of one of the best decks in Modern and Boros Energy. Gives us life, makes our creatures bigger. It does a whole lot of stuff that we want to be doing. And then of course we have Heliod for the 1-turn kill, and then Leonardo Cutting Edge. I really love this guy, really love this card. It's so easy to bring him out. The sneak cost is only one white mana, and then he has lifelink, and then whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on Leo. So yeah, really good. Does a lot of the things that this deck wants to do. And we have Michelangelo Weirdness to 11. So when you ETBs, you get that mutagen token, you sack it for one generic mana or whatever, 1 mana, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. With his additional ability, you get to another +1/+1 counter, so that's pretty cool. And then of course we have Ocelot Pride, the companion to God of Souls in that Modern Boros Energy deck. This card is absolutely insane, and I'm really glad we get to play it in this format. Then we have Rubble Belt Maverick. When ETBs, you get to Surveil 2, which is pretty useful, helps fix your draws. And of course, if it's in the graveyard, for 1 green mana, you get to exile it and put a +1/+1 counter on your creature. And then Saz's Chocobo, landfall, put a +1/+1 counter on him. So yeah, and then we have Scavenging Goose. Really love this card. Does so much that this deck wants to do. It's graveyard hate against your opponent, it gains your life, and of course it puts +1/+1 counters on itself. And then we have Thraben Inspector, and then of course Walking Ballista. For our sorceries, I only run 2, and that's one of them is Honor, and this is a card that came out a few months ago in Edge of Eternities, and I really like this card. I'm a longtime Yu-Gi-Oh player, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned that already. And I really love cantrips. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, at least in retro Yu-Gi-Oh formats, cantripping is really valuable. And so with this one, you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature, and you draw a card. So it's a little bit situational, but if you have, Dust Legion Duelist, and if you have Mikey and Leo out, and you activate Honor, and you target your Dust Legion Duelist, you're gonna get to draw 3 cards, which is pretty great. I like it. Then we have Prismatic Ending, Classic White Removal. For our instance, we have Eladamri's Call, excuse me. That helps us get our Heliod or our Walking Ballista or any combo piece we may need. That's a creature. Same with Enlightened Tutor. That helps us get either our Agatha Soul Cauldron or our Walking Ballista. Flawless Maneuver for protection. Get Lost for removal, or to remove like Blood Moons and things like that. Legolas's Quick Reflexes to give our creatures hexproof so they don't interrupt our combo. And then March of Otherworldly Light, which is an amazing piece of removal. And then Snakeskin Veil. This is a twofer in the fact that it gives your creatures hexproof as well as a +1/+1 counter. And I believe it is hexproof. Sorry, I really like using the Strixhaven artworks. Just let me make sure I am reading that correctly. Yep, put a +1/+1 counter target. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. So, like I said, a double whammy. It triggers Mikey and Leo. Plus, it protects our creatures or our combo lines. Alright, and then we have Source of Plowshares, Tamiya Safekeeping again for protection, and then Worldly Tutor to tutor out either Walking Ballista, Heliod, or Leo. Play 2 artifacts, and the first one is Agatha's Soul Cauldron. And I'll go ahead and stop here and explain the combo that I mentioned earlier. So if you're not too familiar with this combo, this is how it works. You're going to need the Soul Cauldron, you're going to need Leo, and you're going to need Walking Ballista. And you're going to go ahead and cast a Walking Ballista with X = 0. That way it dies immediately and heads to the graveyard. Once it's in the graveyard, you're going to exile it with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Now you're going to go ahead and target your Leo, giving it a +1/+1 counter, and the activated ability of Walking Ballista. So now, with Leo's extra counter, you can go ahead and activate Leo by using Walking Ballista's ability that was granted to it by the Cauldron, by removing a +1/+1 counter from it. Then you're going to deal 1 damage to any target, which is going to be your opponent, causing you to gain 1 life due to its lifelink. Pretty cool, right? Our next artifact is the Ooze. So if you're not familiar with this one, for 2 generic mana, it's a legendary artifact. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it leaves the battlefield, create a mutagen token for each +1/+1 counter on it. And then exile target creature from a graveyard, create a mutagen token. So this is a really good card. I've been playing this on Magic Arena, and oh man, this card can get really bonkers at times. So not only is it graveyard hit against your opponent, but you can beef up your creatures. The mutagen tokens, they trigger Mikey and Leo. They make your creatures stronger, and if those creatures die, you get those counters right back in the form of mutagen tokens. It's really good. Then we have Innkeeper's Talent as our only enchantment. And then for our lands, I play 17, Abandoned Air Temple. This is a way to give our creatures more +1/+1 counters. And then Fetch Lands and Arid Mesa. And then Bongxing Se I think is another insane card, because it for 2 generic and a green mana, you get to Earthbend one of your lands. It triggers Mikey and Leo. The lands is a 2/2. Even if they exile the land, it still comes back to it goes back to being a land, and that's just insane to me. Then we have Boseiju, 2 forests, 1 Gavany Township in order to give our creatures more +1/+1 counters. An Idyllic Range. I like this because it's fetchable. Plus, it gives one of our creatures a +1/+1 counter when it ETBs, provided we have 3 or more other planes as well. Lush Portico, Marsh Flats, 4 plains, 1 Savannah, 1 Temple Garden, and 1 Windswept Heath. Alright, that just about does it. What do you guys think about this deck? I really like this deck. I think it's a lot of fun. How competitively viable it is another story. But maybe you guys can try it out, see if you guys like it. Just let me know.